always in my career been the underdog that people count out. It never got into my head or played any factor in my head because of the work that I had put in, because I knew how hard I had been training. I knew how dedicated I had been for the entire year. I was grinding. It was all gas, no brakes. And I never stopped.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Leaders in Sport podcast. I'm your host, Adrian, with my co-host, Sylvie, and we're joined by the champ. Julianna, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate being on here, of course.
So I think we probably have a bit of a mixed bag of listeners across a lot of different sports. So some will be very familiar with your past and with your present. Other people not so much. So maybe we'll take a quick trip down memory lane and talk about how this all started. So you're from Spokane, Washington, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm from Washington. I'm Washington native.
Washington native, based out of Chicago now.
Yep.
And you've been fighting professionally for how long?
For 13 years.
For 13 years, and almost exclusively in the UFC, correct?
Yeah, I started in the UFC in 2013.
Okay, so yeah, we've been there for quite some time. And so, how did you end up in MMA? What was the catalyst?
I could be completely honest with you guys. I was a chubby bunny and I needed to lose some weight. And so I was offered to join my sister in a women's cardio kickboxing class. And I wasn't doing anything at the moment exercise wise. So I joined. It's like, yeah, I need to drop some pounds. So I started with her and I threw my first punch and my coach was like, "Who taught you how to box?" And I said, "Nobody." And he was like, "Well, who taught you how to punch?" And I said, "You just did." And he was like, "Okay." He's like, "You're natural." So, I threw my first punch at 19 years old and official punch at 19 years old. And haven't really looked back since.
And I think a lot of fighters have that story, funnily enough, I guess. If they didn't come from like a wrestling background, they kind of stumbled into it, especially at that time, because the MMA was not popular.
No. People
see it now and they think that it's always existed in this, in this era. But at the time, no, it would have been hard for you to find fights, even, I imagine, at that point.
Yeah. MMA is a lot more mainstream now, but back then no one was doing it. There was like 5 girls fighting out there at the time. And, I'm literally having my first fight in a bowling alley and the other one in a barn. Back then it was more rare back then than it is now. That's for sure. So there was no one doing it there wasn't a lot of people doing it back then.
But the gym, because I did a little bit of research, like the gym that you were at had some killers at it. Like, it's just so, like, you're so fortunate. Like, there's some studs that fought out of that gym.
Yeah. So my sister's man, Lyle Beerbaum, was like the big star where we were from. He went on a tear. I mean, he was straight out of jail, straight into the cage, and he was trading one addiction for the next. And he kind of led the way as far as, professional fighting goes. And we all kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps. So he was the one that kind of got it started. And then Cody McKenzie was his, main training partner. And then Cody went on to the Ultimate Fighter. And then Mike Chiesa and Sam followed right after that. And then after that, it was my turn. But there was definitely some killers in the gym in the early days. I mean, there's killers there now, of course, but back then there was some really good fighters back then. They were scrappy.
I fought on the same card as Cody probably like 6 years ago, and I was laughing from the moment he walked into the room till the moment he left.
Yeah, I cornered Cody. He couldn't find anyone to come corner him one time in Oklahoma, I think, and he was in this tournament, and I cornered him in a dress. It was pretty funny. He fought a monster, and he almost won. I swear, Cody's the man. Cody's hilarious.
Yeah, he had us rolling laughing. He walked into the back and he somehow managed to pull a bottle of Canadian rye whiskey out of, I don't even know how to wear. Like, he had just walked out of the cage. He only had shorts on. He's like walking into the back with this bottle. So we had a lot of fun just hanging out with him.
Yeah, Cody's a hoot. I remember that fight week. I was so mad at him because we were taking a walk, what I thought was a walk, but unbeknownst to me, we were actually going to the grocery store, not the grocery store, the gas station, so that he could buy like 3 cans of chew. And I'm like, "You're about to fight. What are you doing?" And so that's Cody for you. He's very very true to himself. We love guys like that. And, there's not enough people like Cody.
That's awesome. Is your family in Washington still?
And they're all in Washington. Yeah. I'm the only one out here in Chicago.
That's awesome. And then, So what did your parents think and I'm assuming your background is Venezuelan, obviously, but the Venezuelan Vixen, right?
Yeah. So my dad's from Venezuela and my mom is from New Mexico, and her parents are Mexican and Native American. And, they weren't happy. I'm the baby of 4. I don't know what they were expecting though, or how could they expect anything else? Like my brother beat the crap out of us. Like I'm like literally beat the crap out of us. And so, I was always grew up like very aggressive and like having to like defend myself and like fight out of like every situation, typical older brother type of stuff. But yeah, I became a fighter after my first fight. My dad got down on his knees and he started crying and he was like, please don't ever do this again. Promise me you'll never do this again. And I felt so bad. I felt so guilty. I was like, okay, I won't. And then I did. And I was like, sorry. I felt really bad for that. I'm sorry, Dad. Now he's happy. He's kind of happy. Like literally my fight in last January, this time, I was in Abu Dhabi and he told me that at first he was watching and his whole body was like really cold, like ice cold, like his fingers were like ice blocks and his toes were like freezing, like he thought they were going to fall off. And he said he was real close to the TV. And my brother told me this. He's like, and then he noticed like he went like 5 feet back and then 10 feet back. And then he like completely left the room while I was fighting Sarah McMahon. And he said that his blood was like boiling. He was like ridiculously hot, but he was going through these like weird temperature changes in his body. Like he went from ice cold to like on fire, like back to ice cold. He had a pit in his stomach. This last one for the championship, my poor daddy lost like 15 pounds during fight week. Like he was just like devastated. And like he gave me a hug like right before I'm about to go out to, I'm going to the arena. So I was like, all right, Dad, I'll see you on the other side, And he's like, good luck. I think you'll do good. And I'm like, I don't even think he believes that. I think he's just trying to tell me that to make me feel better. It's like, it's okay, Dad. I got this. I promise. I got this.
Oh, and then what about your mother? Does she watch? Or no? Oh yeah.
She's a real one. Yeah. She's a ride or die. In the beginning, I think that she obviously wasn't too gung ho about, me choosing fighting for a profession. In fact, I think both my parents were adamant that I go to school and get a degree. And I tried, I have a couple quarters under my belt. I went to college for a little bit, but, my mom, my first couple amateur fights, she'd be clinging onto the cage and she'd be like a cat just right on that cage. She'd, kill her, Julianna, kill her. Like, you can't be this close to the cage. You got to go sit down. Like, get out of here. Like, seriously.
Oh my God.
And I can hear her from the Raptors. One time I fought in Virginia and she was up in the nosebleeds. And I just remember I was pounding the girl and my mom's like, choke her, Julianna, choke her. And I could hear her. Like, I thought she was over my shoulder. Like, that's how crystal clear she came in. Like, my mom, she's a ride or die, man. She's so happy for me and she's so excited. And, it's awesome now looking back to know, before they were like, absolutely not. But now they're like my biggest fans.
That's awesome. Who do you take after more?
I definitely think I get my fighting spirit from my mom. Absolutely. Yeah. She had a rough life growing up. She took the tail end of many beatings herself, actually. So I think I have channeled her inner fighter. And I think she's very happy to know that, she couldn't fight and she couldn't stand up for herself, but I can. She raised me differently, very differently from her other 3 children. And I was the baby. So she made sure to, instill in me, you don't lay down for anybody and you march to the beat of your own drum. And if somebody tries to push you, you push right back. And so I definitely get that fighter spirit from my mom's side. Definitely.
That's awesome. And brothers or sisters? I know you said one brother, but is it all boys and you?
No, it's one older brother and 2 older sisters. Yeah. But I have a really large family and we were hanging out as a family together all the time. And so like, it was constant roughhousing every day. It was constant roughhouse.
That's awesome. And then when did you go to Chicago? How did that move happen from Washington?
Yeah. So the UFC sent me out here one time. for Latino Heritage Month, and I was staying down on Michigan Avenue, and my coach, Rick Little, hit me up and said, hey, there's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt named Luis Claudio. He lives in that area. I met him one time at a UFC fight night when I was cornering Sam Cecilia. He's like, we stayed up till like 4 a.m. doing jiu-jitsu. He's incredible. You need to go see him. And I was like, okay. So I took the train. I drove out to where he was. It was like an hour away from the city. And I met Luis Claudio, and we ended up coming back out here doing seminars, and I would stay with Luis for a while. And right before I fought Kat Zingano, I was living with him for a few months. And then I went back to Spokane, and then I was just out here training with him, just staying with him again for a few months. And I was like, if I ever am going to move to a place, Chicago would probably be the place that I would like to move. I think in my mind, I was like, I love Kanye West, and Kanye West from Chicago. So if I'm ever going to move anywhere, then it's going to be Chi-Town, that's it was in my head, like, yeah, Chicago. And then like I moved here and I was like, what was I thinking? But honestly, the training that I've been able to receive out here has been incredible. I was a big fish in a small pond in Spokane, and moving out here had definitely forced me to level up in sparring and jiu-jitsu in all areas and in all facets. If you don't evolve your game, it's going to pass you up. And so I definitely think that, moving out here kind of opened my eyes to, you're not top dog anymore, and you gotta, roll with the punches and learn how to get better. So I definitely think that shows and has been showing in my evolution as a fighter.
Well, I can what a lifestyle change too, to go from Spokane to Chicago.
Massive. Yeah. And then I got pregnant, and then it's like, oh, you for sure aren't going anywhere. And so it's like, I'm here at least for the next, let's see, she just turned 4. I don't know what 18 subtract 4 is.
14 years.
I fight for a living. Yeah. 14 years. I got 14 years left.
I want to ask about that a bit more. Being a female athlete and going through pregnancy, like what was that like? Like, I know a lot of female athletes I've worked with, it's like, oh no, my career's over. Like everything changes. What was that like?
So like my first initial thought was, oh shoot, you're pregnant. And I was at the time number 2 in my division. I was at the top of my career at that time. But then, there was another side to me where it was like, I always knew that I wanted to be a mother, and I always knew that I wanted to have kids. In fact, I want more kids. But I just think that the timing threw me off guard for sure. I was like, I don't know if I'll ever fight again, but I for sure felt like I don't know if I'm ever going to fight again when I had an emergency C-section. I was 1,000%, especially being like an alpha chick. I was 100% like, I'm going to give birth naturally. I'm not going to take the epidural. Like, I'm totally going to do this. Like, I can't wait. I was ready. I was excited. And then, 42 weeks comes by, and they're like, we got to get this baby out of you now, like now. And I feel real sheepish too, because, my mom, she was like, you're not even close to giving birth yet. You haven't even dropped your belly. Like, you're not even close. And I was like, maybe that was you with your 5 kids, cause she lost 1 kid. I was like, maybe that was with your body. My body's different, and then like, I went to the doctor, and they're like, yeah, we got to get this kid out now. Like, you're not giving birth naturally. Like, we need an emergency C-section. So I felt like robbed me of like what I thought was like womanhood, of like typical giving birth, and having my baby, by C-section, I wasn't expecting that. And then like knowing that you get your guts cut open, they just shove it back, sew you up, and tell you to have a nice day. Like, I was like, I don't think I'll ever fight again. So that mental hurdle, having to get over that mental hurdle was pretty tough, and here she is. Here's the star herself, the star of the show.
Hello. What's your name? Isa. Yeah. Isa. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's such a, hard thing to go through as a woman, and especially, not as you planned, obviously. So what was the recovery like? Like, how did you know you were going to fight again, get your strength back? Who is the team that helped you with that?
Yeah. So I met this fabulous doctor. Her name is Jennifer Mercier. And she's a miracle worker with her hands. Godsend. This woman is amazing. And she invented this type of therapy for women to get pregnant and to help women recover from pregnancy. So her success rate is just incredible. And she's gotten so many women pregnant, and she has also helped many women recover from C-sections and stuff like that. So I found her. She's actually in the Chicagoland area, and she was so confident that I would be able to fight again. And she just honestly gave me that confidence that I was going to be able to, my abs were going to heal back together, and that I was going to have this therapy done on me. So like usually when you get a C-section, they cut you open, they rip your guts out, they throw it back in, so you up and have a nice day. Well, the organs fuse together, and blood flow can't flow through your organs anymore because they're all mounted on top of each other. And then when that happens, if you laugh a little bit, you pee your pants, or, like if you sneeze or something, you pee. So it was really important to get this type of therapy so that the blood flow could move through my organs back to normal, like they were functioning before pregnancy. And so I did that therapy for about 8 or 9 weeks, I believe. And then, I was cleared to go back to training and get that baby weight off. And as the pounds came down and as I started to get my wind again, I was like, I can do this. I got this. No doubt about it. In fact, it actually invigorated me and gave me more of like another push, another motivation, more strength.
I was going to ask, what was the timeline between your like previous fight and then your next fight after giving birth?
So you would have to sure dog this because I don't know exactly, but Valentina, I fought her January, I believe, of like 2017. And then my next fight was against Nico Montano. Took that fight on 2 weeks, and I don't recall the year. I think that was like 2019, 2020.
It's just like a bad knee surgery, just...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
same thing. The same thing.
Well, that is what's funny.
Months or something like that.
Yeah, that is what's funny about MMA though. When you see people's like that's not uncharacteristic to see someone go, 14, 15, 16 months out of the cage. I mean, obviously that is uncharacteristic what you had to go through. But if you just looked at your sure dog record, no one would think, you wouldn't even notice, so to speak.
Yeah. And I mean, I've done the knee things too, especially with this being such a hard sport. I mean, fighting 2 times in a year is plenty for a professional fighter. But yeah, I mean, it was good. What I really enjoyed with the time off was I didn't want to rush getting back to the cage. I wanted to enjoy my time with my baby. I wanted to have every second I could and spend every waking moment with her. I didn't want to feel like this burden that some people feel like I got to get in the cage right away, So I definitely took my time getting back to the octagon, and I didn't rush anything at all. I did rush the fact that I came back on a fight on 2 weeks notice, but that's just because I was ready to go.
That's amazing. And it's funny, we had a bunch of different questions that the DFS team had submitted to us. But one of them that they wanted us to ask about was different trainers that you've had in the past. And I think Chris may have actually been the one that asked that question.
Yeah.
So when did what was the team? Is it all out of one gym in Chicago? You only train there? Do you bounce around a little bit? What's the...
Yeah, I live in the car. I literally live in the car. I go from one training session to the next, to the next, to the next, and they're all in different locations in the Chicagoland area. I met Chris Grayson through my daughter's father, and he helped me get my body back into shape. And he was such an incredible trainer. And I miss him. He moved away to South Carolina, and my heart broke when he left because we had such a bond, I was like, my best friend's leaving. Right. But Chris is an incredible trainer. He has a wealth of knowledge. Literally, I don't think I've met a smarter guy. It would get to the point where he knows so much about it. I'd be like, just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do. I don't need to know all the ins and outs. You know what I mean? Because for me as a fighter, I'm just like, over my head, guy, just show me what you want me to do. He's so knowledgeable. And I still call him literally for any sort of question that I have. Anytime when it comes to supplements or training or anything like that, I know that I can count on him because he's such a smart guy. He knows what he's talking about. He's been doing this for forever, So Chris Grayson is probably one of the best trainers I've ever had.
That's awesome. Maybe talk about your schedule a little bit. I think people don't understand what sort of time requirements go into fighting when you look at all the different disciplines.
Yeah, so it depends on the day, but every day for Monday through Thursday, I start my day at my MMA gym at 10:30. We do pro practice, and then I'll come home, I'll eat, and then I'll go lift. And then when I go, after I'm done lifting, I'll probably eat drink a protein shake at the gym. And then I'll head to my last practice of the night. It's either jujitsu or boxing or back to the MMA gym. And so every single day, it's at least 2 to 3 training sessions every day. And it's bouncing around from, one place to the next, and they're in different locations. So, I mean, sometimes my drive can be an hour. Sometimes it can be 15 minutes. It just depends on where I'm going and what day is scheduled for that day. But every day is, at least 2 to 3 training sessions a day. My only rest day is Sunday when I'm in camp.
Yeah. And then Friday, you said Monday to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you just train once or twice still? Friday
and Saturday, I spar live. And then Saturday I will lift and do jujitsu, or I will do MMA class and spar. So sometimes we had our sparring nights officially Friday nights, but for this last camp, we had to change it to Saturday nights because I was commentating in Miami every Friday night. Okay. So I'd go and I'd commentate. I'd leave on Thursday. Sometimes I'd leave on Friday morning. I'd commentate Friday night and then take the very first the very first flight, 5 a.m. back to Chicago. I'd get off the plane. I'd Uber straight to the gym, and then I'd spar on Saturdays. So that was just because I was commentating at the time. But yeah, Saturdays, usually we have a pro practice at 11:30, and then sometimes I would do that. I'd go to the pro practice at 11:30 and then go spar later on Saturday night too. So it really just depends on the day and the scheduling and trying to work around everybody else's schedule, right? Because in Spokane, it was a one-stop shop. I would just go train with Rick in the garage and call it a day. That's the only place I needed to go. In Chicago, it's like I got my boxing at a certain gym. I got my MMA at a certain gym. I have my jiu-jitsu at a certain gym, and I got my strength and conditioning at a certain gym. So I'm just constantly all over the place, all day long.
That's awesome. And your coaches obviously all work together, I assume, to help facilitate it?
Yep, they all work together. So Rick is our CEO. He's my head coach, and he lives in Spokane. And he kind of is always constantly in communication with the other coaches as far as what he wants to work on and what the game plan needs to be. So he trusts in my coaches over here to get the job done. And they are all very intelligent in their own rights, and they're masters of their crafts. So of course he trusts, the training that they're putting me through. And then when it gets down to the wire and I get closer to the fight, Rick will actually come out here in Chicago, and he'll stay with me for a month. He'll stay with me for 2 weeks. He'll stay with me for 3 weeks, and he'll go back and forth between Spokane and Chicago all the way leading up to the fight.
Oh, that's awesome. And how many times a week do you spar? Just the one time?
No, so we spar live on Wednesdays and then Friday nights or Saturdays. So I think, two times a week.
2 times a week. Yeah. No, it's funny. It's funny how every single gym has their own set sparring days, and it's consistent always at the gym.
Oh yeah. Well, and I could tell you that Wednesdays for me, I always know are okay, for Tuesday nights, I'll say Tuesday nights is always that kid that's about to go to Disneyland the next day. Your heart's pounding out of your chest and you just can't, you're so excited, but it's I'm not excited. I'm about to go get into the lion's den. So it's waking up the day before a fight. Right. So it's you're about to go to war. So Tuesday nights are always really difficult for me because I know that come Wednesday morning, it's on. Yeah. And so when I get closer to the fight, I get more excited. I'm oh yeah, somebody's going to die today, but when you're just getting back in shape, when you're just getting back to the gym and you've been out of the gym, it's oh no, I'm gonna get it tomorrow.
And everyone else is in shape, or they have a fight coming up and they're dialed in.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling. And you're not, and you get punched once, you're what's your problem? Take it easy. They're you know what day it is.
That's awesome. What was in Miami? What organization were you commentating on? Yeah,
so I commentate. I'm the lead color commentator for Combate Global. They just changed their name. Excuse me. It's on Paramount Plus. Okay. And it's just a Latin American fighting league that is just sprouting up all over the place. I feel no knock on the UFC by any means, but they keep stealing all our talent. It's crazy. Every time I see somebody that I call their fight, boom, the next week they're fighting for the UFC. So they're picking off our guys left and right. But yeah, Combate is an amazing league. Actually, the one who started the UFC, his name is Campbell McLaren. He started the UFC back in 1993, and he sold off his rights, and now has a new baby, which is Combate, and he's doing it all over again. But this time, he's catering to the Hispanic market. So we're all over Latin America, all over Telemundo, Univision, and they have their Spanish side that commentates on the Spanish side, and they got like really big deals with those productions, Telemundo, Univision, and stuff like that. But for their English side, we broadcast on Paramount Plus. We're streaming there on Paramount Plus, and it's a great time. You know, I mean, I love fighting. I can talk about fighting all day long, and to get my feet wet on the commentating side too is also truly a blessing.
For sure. And Latin America just has such a rich history with fighting. So
exactly. And the thing that makes Combate exciting, it may things that I wasn't used to in the past, but now I'm like used to, they have a different type of fighting style when it comes to what they're looking for. So Latin America, like you said, has a big, rich history in fighting, in that fighting spirit. Yeah. And they are a lot different in their fighting styles. They want to stand in the pocket and trade, and literally the one who goes down is the one who loses. So it's like they stand all day long. You don't see a lot of groundwork. And if you literally go to the ground and don't like execute within the first like 10 or 30 seconds, they're standing you right back up and they're getting you right back in the pocket. And, you know, let's see who drops first. You know, they're very prideful in that sense that they're not trying to go to the ground. They're not trying to do wrestling and jiu-jitsu. They're trying to knock your head off your shoulders. And I think that that's kind of that Mexican fighting spirit that differs from what we see normally, like in the UFC. It's like in the UFC, they'll let you work, not in Combate. It's like, you got to work and make it happen in like 30 seconds or less, or else you're getting stood back up.
That's awesome. Yeah, the cultures are fantastic. So go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to ask, I will get back to the fighting questions, but I wanted to ask, because I've worked with some MMA fighters, and the biggest thing that I find challenging about their schedules and training so much, and eating enough food, because you just mentioned sometimes 3-a-day training sessions. So like on those days, like how do you stay like up on your nutrition and eating enough? Because I know it's challenging for athletes who train once a day. So right. What does your schedule look like? And, you know, how do you manage that?
Honestly, that was one thing that Chris, and still my trainer now, my strength trainer, they're always on my butt about that, because I am horrible with that kind of stuff. And it's not that like I don't want to eat, but like when you have to eat that much to refuel and replenish for the next one, it's like you're full. It's like a chore to have to eat, and then you got to like finish it all, and you're like, I can't even finish this. I don't even want to eat it to begin with, you know. It's like, but then there's other days where I'm a ravenous animal and I just like can't stop eating. And so honestly, the nutrition side for me has always been the most difficult part as far as being a fighter goes, especially when I have, you know, not such good influences. Like my head coach, Rick, will be like, you really think that if you eat that Starburst that it's going to, you know, affect your performance and you're not going to be able to throw a punch the right way or something. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be eating this. He's like, eat the Starburst. It's fine. You're not, it's okay. You know? So, you know, when he's here, it's always like he's eating barbecue and he'll be like, yeah, eat the barbecue. You need the protein. You got to replenish, you know, and he'll find an excuse for me to be like, pizza, it's carbs, you know, it's good for you. Just eat the pizza, you know. But honestly, this last camp, I dialed it in. MedKit meal preps has been helping me for this last camp. And I mean, these guys are so awesome. They went and talked to my strength and conditioning trainer that I work with now, Alex Spanos. They got all my macros. He literally like told them every single day what I'm training and how much I need to eat and how much I need. And he got it dialed in with their nutritionist at the Northwestern college there. And so Alex, my trainer, talked to the nutritionist figured out how much macros and everything that I needed. And then Alex went back to the MedKit meal preps and was like, this is what she needs. And so they give me that. And I mean, they're facilitating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I take them with me when I go. And then when I'm at strength and conditioning, for example, I'll down one of their protein shakes that they got there in the facility. And I'll take a little bag and I'll stuff in all the snacks, you know, and then I'll just like eat them on the road as I go. Like I'm eating Clif bars and drinking cherry tart juices and, you know, on to the next one until I can get home to feed myself dinner with the MedKit meal prep.
That's awesome. I think that's so important that you had that figured out, because it's the most challenging thing for athletes to eat that much and to know how much protein you need, how many carbohydrates based on like obviously the high intensity exercise that you're doing. So I think that's so important. If you can have that taken care of for you, that's so huge.
Yeah. So for example, on like the days that I train 3 times, it'll say right on there, bulk meal, and it'll be like a thicker container that has more of the carbs that I need, because they know that I'm training 3 times a day on that day. And it does have like every single amount of proteins, the grams and everything is all weighed out on the little container. So I know exactly how much I'm getting and what I'm getting. So they really do a great job. MedKit Meal Preps is absolutely legit.
And
that's awesome.
And I'm not just saying it. It tastes good. The flavor is there.
Which is huge.
These little companies, I mean, the flavor's horrible. The food is bland. It's like not fresh, like these people, like they got, especially I think with them being Hispanic, the flavors are there. Like, I'm always having to like add salt. Yeah. Like I'm always having to add salt to those other ones that I was eating before. Like this one, it's like the flavors are there. You don't have to add anything.
Did you notice a difference too in training, like on a stricter meal program over the last camp, like in terms of energy and output?
I would say, if I could be completely honest with you, I don't notice that kind of stuff just because I'm always constantly used to grinding and just like go on to the next thing. So I wouldn't know. I would just say that it gives me enough energy to get to the next training camp or to the next training session and holds me off until I got to eat the next one too. So it's just, yes, I guess I would say yes. I noticed a massive difference.
Well, and you had another add to this camp, obviously, and which is part of the reason that we're here on this podcast. So Designs for Sport. So how did that partnership come about? Where did that come from?
Okay, so Chris Grayson has been like sneaking me beef protein shakes for like the second that I got into his gym. And at first I was like, you're disgusting. I'm not drinking a beef protein shake. Like that sounds horrible. And then after a while I'd be like, you got the beef protein shakes? Like where are they at? Like I'd be like jonesing for this protein. So Chris introduced me to Designs for Sport when I very first met him. And he was always getting me on those beef protein shakes. And then Chris moved away. I didn't hear anything from him. And then he hit me up and was like, dude, I'm going to be consulting for Designs for Sport. I think that you should, hit them up. Maybe they can endorse you. And I was like, yeah, man, let me know, and then they did. Jordan got a hold of me and they came on as a official endorser. And I've been with them ever since. And that stuff for sure. I notice a difference in my training. Absolutely.
We usually, go ahead, Sil.
What are your go-tos? Like obviously beef protein, but what are your other go-tos?
How tasty is that beef protein though? We tell people this all the time and they don't understand.
They're like, gross. It doesn't sound good, but it's so good.
Yeah, that's the thing, because the word beef, so they hear beef and they're just like, that's disgusting, but it's actually like good. And we were joking about that, like putting it in our coffees and like making like mochas and stuff. But the beef protein obviously is one. I love the collagen. I feel like when I drink that collagen, like put it in my coffee, first off, it's tasteless. Second off, when I put it in my coffee, I feel like you just oiled up the Tin Man, I'm just like ready to go. My joints feel great. Like, because I've had 2 knee surgeries. I've dislocated both my elbows. Like I've done it all, so I notice a difference when I'm not taking my collagen. Collagen's a big one for me. And then I always say it wrong. GPC liquid. I think it's what it's called.
GPC liquid. Yeah.
Okay. So I've never had any sort of traumatic brain injury, not that I'm aware of anyway, although some people would argue. But I truly believe that that's like my little secret sauce, right? Like that's like the stuff that like I take it in front of everyone and I'm like, you guys you don't even know about this. You don't even have this yet. You know what I mean? It gives me that extra added sense of like superwoman type of thing where it's like, I feel like even though I don't notice any immediate effects, I feel like when I take it, like I'm protected, and so I love the GPC liquid. I think that it's great. And, Chris has been talking to me about that GPC liquid for so long and how good it is for traumatic brain injury type of stuff and head trauma. And so especially, getting hit every day, it's something that I definitely take with me. in my purse. Like I'm constantly on that GPC liquid. Yeah. And I take it before, you know, big hard training sessions, rolling jujitsu for a long time, sparring for sure, you know, any type of like high intensity type of workout that I do, I take that GPC liquid. And then the curcumin, the curcumin, I don't know if it's called curcumin for Designs for Sport, but I know that it is curcumin.
Yeah, curcumin complex. So there's some other ingredients in it, but yeah, that's I mean, especially for what you're going through on a daily basis with your training, like you said, it's like, and this is the thing that I think people don't understand about MMA. It's like like they see the fights, but the training is really where you need the protection because you're doing that every day, right? So
yep.
It's huge for inflammation.
Yep. And I take that like religiously. And I'm waiting for the liquid vitamin D. I think that's coming in the mail here shortly. Oh, and then the hydration complex, I think that's what it's called. Yeah. I take that with what is it?
Oh, aminos?
I was going to say the aminos, right? I was like, they're not the same thing. Yeah. I take that with the aminos. And that's like my drink, like 2 times a day. You know, if I'm training 3 times, I'll only take it twice, but at least I take it at least 2 times. I carry that with me, and I drink that, you know, after every training session and during the training session.
That's awesome.
I love it. Yeah, those are great products.
Yeah. Fighting, like, yeah, it is funny. You can't. I mean, there's some guys in the sport that don't have to, I guess, like the Max Holloways and the Donald Cerrones who have thousands of hours of live cage time, but it's hard to practice to fight without fighting. Right?
Yeah. And that's what they say. Like, for example, if Cody No Love, because he came from a boxing background, if he never sparred another live session in his training camp, he'd be fine. He knows how to spar. He's got that, you know? Yeah. And so those types of hits that you're taking in training sometimes are worse than the hits that you take in the octagon. And so, you know, since like she said, since you're training every single day, that's when you need to be protecting yourself, is because I'm doing this every single day. And so I don't have as much experience as the Donald Cerrones or the Max Holloways, but, you know, getting up there, especially in this last camp, I sparred more than I ever have in any of my training, in any of my previous fights. And so, you know, I anticipate, you know, the same exact thing leading up to my next fight. And I know how important it is, especially with traumatic brain injury, to be taking care of your brain and your body, because obviously I can't fight forever, but I still want to be able to like remember things and remember moments in my daughter's life, you know? And so I definitely think that these products are aiding in that protection.
That's awesome. What's the word on the next fight? Is anything inked up yet or no?
So I don't have anything inked up officially, but I would assume that we're going to rematch sometime in the summer. You know what they say about assumptions, though, you know, but that's my wish. That's my want, right? That's like what best case scenario for me. Yeah.
You want to like run it back with Amanda first before anything else? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because there's still naysayers out there. There's still people out there that think that it was a fluke, that it just happened, you know, by chance, and that, oh, she was sick or this and that. There's so many excuses that people are making. I just want to go back out there, put the naysayers to bed once again, and just let everybody know it wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it is fighting. There's no flukes in fighting. People say that all the time, but if you close your fist and throw it at someone's face, there's no real flukes.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
Really? Did you watch the fight? It was a fluke? Okay.
Well, especially
we'll run it back.
Yeah, especially in that style too. It's not like you close your eyes, landed one shot, and the fight was over. Like, yeah, you hit.
No, although they thought that was going to happen to me, they're like, Pena, last 10 seconds in the first round. Like everyone was counting me out. No one thought I was going to win that fight.
So yeah, I actually wanted to ask about that. What is it like going into? I know we're going to be mindful of your time here, but what is it like going into that? That like fight, just in terms of confidence and the mental side of it, when you know everybody, like you said, was betting against you.
You know, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. I've always in my career been the underdog that people count out. So it's kind of like a thing, you know, but I feel like it never got into my head or played any factor in my head because of the work that I had put in, because I knew how hard I had been training. I knew how dedicated I had been for the entire year. I was grinding. It was all gas, no brakes, and I never stopped. And so I think that knowing that I put in all that time, knowing that I put in all that hard work, I mean, they could have put, Fedor Emelianenko across the ring for me himself, and I would have freaking went out there and freaking did the same exact thing. That's how ready I was. That's how confident I was. And then there's little tells. There's little tells leading up to the fight that, there's little wins. You got to win a little bit here. You got to win a little bit there. And, when she didn't show up for the fight in August, I was like, I got you.
Right.
And so there was just so many things that it was like my confidence was never shaken. I was supremely confident that I was going to get the win no matter what. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but I knew if push comes to shove, no matter what, at the end of the night, I was going to get my hand raised, and I'm going to get my hand raised again.
What do you want people to say when you retire from the sport about you?
That she was relentless, that she was a dog. And she was just a relentless dog. I know that's so weird. Like, a girl wants to say, I want to be remembered for being a dog. But like, I want to be remembered for just being a relentless fighter. If you have a type of personality where you're, I'm never giving up, it's really hard to stop somebody with that type of attitude and with that type of personality. And that's always been my personality. That's always been, like I said, coming from a place in my childhood where I was constantly having to fight my way out of situations. I've never given up, and I'm never going to give up. Right now I feel like, yes, I have the belt, but it still feels like day one to me. Now I got the target on my back. This is what I wanted. And now it's time to actually start all over again and go to work and make sure that I do everything in my power to defend and to retain and to make many more defenses after this moving forward. So for me, I just want them to remember that I was just a relentless person who never gave up and who was always striving to reach their goals, and to let them know that whatever your goal is, if you put in enough time and dedication and hard work, that you can make it happen.
Awesome.
Love that. Thank you so much, Julianna. We're going to let you go because we know you have another call and you're very busy. But thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared today. And we look forward to doing a follow-up chat, maybe around your next one.
Yes, absolutely, guys. Thank you so much. I got this other call coming in, but I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.